Many Metro Detroiters connect to the world through Delta. We'll talk with the airline's new CEO about security, the industry, and what it all means for passengers in one of Delta's biggest hub cities. And Wayne County Executive Warren Evans on jails, soccer, and the way we fund Michigan's municipalities. Today is Sunday, May 29, 2016, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to Flashpoint. I hope you're enjoying your holiday weekend. No holiday around here. We've got a busy morning ahead. First up, as we head into the summer travel season, perhaps you're afraid to get anywhere close to an airport given the lines at the security checkpoints. Sure enough, this week the TSA fired its head of security. But as frustrating as the whole no liquids, take off your shoes, put your laptop in a bin routine has become, it is still so critical because air travel remains a vital cog in the world's economic engine, and you have to believe short-circuiting that engine remains at the top of any terrorist wish list. This morning, a conversation with the new CEO of Delta Airlines, Ed Bastian, about security, about Delta's plans for its Detroit hub, and whether those baggage fees ever get to go away. Then I'm going to sit down with Wayne County Executive Warren Evans. He's got plenty of worries, but no doubt chief among them is the fact that he's blowing $1 million a month right now on the Wayne County jail mess. How does the plan for a new soccer stadium fit in? We're going to talk about that, and we'll set the stage for this year's Mackinac Island Policy Conference with Sandy Barua. It's a busy morning today on Flashpoint. We're going to start out this morning coming to you from the Westin Hotel at Detroit Metro Airport. A rare chance to sit down with the CEO of Delta Airlines. Very good to welcome Ed Bastian to Flashpoint. Ed, thank you very much for the time this morning.
Great to be with you.
Good to have you here. I want to talk a lot about Delta's role in what's happening in Detroit and the future, but I want to start with where I think the rubber meets the road for a lot of people right now, and that's their frustration with air travel vis-a-vis TSA.
Right.
We watched the security chief of TSA be relieved this past week, but we're just getting into the summer travel season. As somebody who, I guess in a sense, as the airline, you're on the other side of the TSA line waiting for the people to come to you. It's nothing you control, and yet it's very intertwined with what you're trying to do.
We don't control it, but we look at it as part of our customers' travel experience. So we're very engaged with TSA and trying to make the lines move as quickly as possible. The challenge we have today is that our air travel is up. You know, we're going to be up this summer 5 to 10% in terms of people traveling. Yeah. Largely driven because airfares are down. Airfares are down 5% versus a year ago, so more volume's up. TSA staffing levels are about 10% below last year's, and so as a result of that, the mix isn't working. What we've done is we've provided resources to TSA. There's a lot of jobs that the agents themselves, the TSA agents, don't need to have a badge for to do, such as checking IDs at the front of the line, moving bins around, telling people to disengage, taking their cell phones out of them. There's a lot of work that Delta. So we've provided. I know in Atlanta about 75 resources to pull in those roles to free up more officers for more lanes to be opened. We're investigating and investing in new processes in Atlanta to try to keep lines moving. We've got industrial engineers. There's a lot of work we're doing with TSA to help the flow.
And yet when I'm going through security, I can't help but feel that this is all a ridiculous exercise. I watch an 80-year-old woman getting a pat down. I see these tests that have been run where the TSA agents miss 90% of maybe the bomb-making materials that somebody's getting through security. And I'm never really convinced that there are that many people trying to create mayhem, a relative handful in the world, no doubt about it. But it all seems like a very strange exercise in that sense.
It's a challenge. We do have pre-check and other vehicles through which people can accelerate their path through, and we encourage all of our customers to get pre-check clearance, and that does speed the process up. Yes. But TSA's first commitment is to security and safety, and line management is not on the top of their list, and we're trying to bring some line management, industrial engineering techniques to keep lines going without compromising safety and security.
Well, let's talk then. Let's move into where we are right now with Delta and its role in what's happening in Detroit. Just this past week, you launched news service into Munich.
Yeah.
Now, to the uninitiated, maybe that sounds like, oh well, that's a nice little flight into this Bavarian city. I've connected into Munich last year for the first time through Toronto, and I had no idea it was that kind of a connecting point in Europe. I mean, it's a big step.
It's a big market. It's a big market. Second biggest market outside of Frankfurt.
Yeah.
A lot of travel, a lot of business travel.
Yeah.
You know, specifically the autos have a lot of business in Germany that they want to get to, and so we're pleased to launch that flight.
So Detroit has become this interesting place to be a gateway, especially into Asia.
Yeah.
It seems nonsensical almost that a city that's in the Eastern time zone and where Detroit is situated. But tell me a little bit about Detroit's position with Delta and where you see the future going for the city.
Well, we look at the U.S., you know, kind of east of the Mississippi, west of the Mississippi, and we do have on the eastern half, you know, Detroit, a wonderful airport, best airport in North America.
That's pretty terrific.
That is designed for connecting traffic flows, and it's more efficient for us to drive as much flow over Detroit to Asia directly than almost any other launch point in the eastern half of the United States, and that's what we're doing. So we bring all of our traffic up through Detroit and take Detroit to 5 destinations in Asia direct.
A few years back, when fuel prices went sky high and the ticket prices went way up, everybody sort of protested, and I was all ready to light into you over, wow, now that gas is a lot cheaper, why haven't prices gone down? And then I read a study that shows, as you mentioned, that air ticket prices are down, right, and adjusted for inflation, it actually costs about half to fly as it did 30 years ago.
It does.
You kind of took my argument right out of my, it takes my argument right out of my hands. It is more reasonable than I think most of us, I guess, give it credit for.
It is. Deregulation back in the 80s worked. Deregulation was designed to bring airfares down, to bring flying to a larger group of people. And today, this summer, we will have more people traveling on Delta than any time in our history. Right. And fares are down. They're about 10% lower on an inflation-adjusted basis than just 10 years ago. And every year, you continue to see price points come lower.
But it must then kind of grate on you that I guess that for most people, when they talk about air travel, many of them talk about a very miserable experience. Never mind TSA, which is of course pretty unpleasant, right, but then the shrinking leg room. A third of the people on any flight are in the dreaded middle seat, so they're already miserable. The bins that are overfilled because everybody's carrying on now rather than paying baggage fees. Why does it have to be such a lousy experience for so many people?
Well, we think first of all, it's not a lousy experience. We think it's a very good experience at Delta.
Where would the world's stand-up comedians be without being able to complain about air travel?
I think if you were to look at Delta's promoter scores on its customers, we've been at all-time highs. So we're providing the most reliable product we've ever provided in our history. We are in the midst of a streak where we've gone over 2 weeks without a single cancellation worldwide. Which is
extraordinary given the number of flights, isn't it?
Yeah, 3,000 flights a day. It's pretty remarkable. And as you bring price points down, more people want to travel. So our load factors are at all-time highs too. 20 years ago, which is a reference point for some people, our planes were half full. Today, our planes are full. And the reason our planes are full is because prices are a lot lower and people want to travel. So it's a balance. We maintain different products. We have, for people that want to buy a little more leg room, there's an ability to buy up the product, and whether it doesn't have to be first class, it could be our premium economy, which we're fairly modest buy up. But we think air travel today provides value that's never seen before.
It's a real double edge for people, though, because of course it means those full planes are indicative of the success, but that's part of what makes it difficult.
It's one of the reasons why prices are as low as they are, and it keeps prices low.
I'm really curious as to where we're headed in the future of air travel. We talk a lot right now, especially in Detroit, about the future of mobility. Right. We're talking about self-driving cars, cars powered by electricity, cars powered by hydrogen, this connected system. I never hear people talk about changing the way that we travel through the air. When I was a kid, we had the SST, and I assumed that by now everything would be Concorde-like supersonic travel. Fact of the matter is, it still takes about 7 hours to get from Detroit to London. Where's the future of air travel going?
Well, a couple things on that. First of all, a lot of it's is embedded in the air traffic control systems, which we all agree need to be modernized and updated. And so the routings of aircraft today, as air travel has increased, have slowed down because of spacing requirements. We're working with the government, we're working with the next-gen ATC officials to try to find ways to continue to improve with a more efficient air traffic control system. Supersonic travel, there's a spot for that, but the price points to make supersonic travel work, most people aren't interested in. And so the size
Concorde never made money, right?
It never did, and there's a reason why it was shut down. It came around price points, and it came around the investment as a result that airlines could not afford to make in that product.
You mentioned to me earlier that you didn't take your first flight until you were 25 years old. You graduated from college without having ever been on a plane.
That's true.
And today you're running one of the world's largest airlines.
Yeah, go figure.
You kind of blown away at where you are.
I am. I'm humbled. I'm humbled by it. It's a great company. We have the best people, 80,000 people worldwide. They do a great job here in Detroit. I really do believe this is the best airport in North America, right here in Detroit. And there's a tremendous value that we bring to the local economy in terms of 125 directs a day, in terms of destination served. It's great.
Terribly important part of the future of Detroit. Ed, it's been a pleasure. Thanks very much for.
Well, thanks for having me. It's good seeing you, and I look forward to seeing you again in the future.
Hope so. Thanks very much, Ed. We come back, we'll be joined by Wayne County Executive Warren Evans. This is Flashpoint on Local 4. Welcome back. This week marks the annual trek up to Mackinac Island for the policy conference. And if you're Wayne County Executive Warren Evans, I imagine you probably just want to print out a couple of cards explaining where things stand right now, because Warren Evans, you are going to be asked nonstop about what's going on with the jail versus bringing in a soccer stadium. Let's start there. Good to have you here, by the way, this morning.
Thanks. Good to be here. It's probably a good idea to put together some cards, question and answer, because a lot of it is stuff that the average person doesn't really see that factors in the equation. And
it's far more complicated than it appears, isn't it?
It is. It is. One of the biggest things is people think it's, let's put the cost aside for a minute. People, well, can't put it aside, but people think that we're only talking about the jail site, which means where the jail sits. And they don't understand that is not the footprint of the proposed entertainment soccer center. Takes away our courthouse, the jail site, and the juvenile detention facility, all of which would have to be rebuilt somewhere else or something repurposed, and I don't know that there's the ability to repurpose that. And the juvenile detention facility poses a particular issue because I'm not interested in privatizing the care of our kids. And so it's a bigger piece. I've been trying to finish the existing jail, not because I love the site or not because I love the mess we're in or any of that, but because it's the cheapest way to get the county a jail without any more, not any more.
Yeah, the cheapest way is one that's costing you $1 million right now a month.
Exactly.
That says a lot.
That's absolutely true.
But when I thought it was an interesting game of poker when Dan Gilbert and Tom Gores say there is no plan B, aren't they telling you we're here to help you solve your problem? I mean, I don't know where the dollars go, but they're kind of telling you to write the number in on the check, aren't they?
Well, no. What they're saying is we think we might be able to fill in the gap between what it's going to cost you to finish, but saying that they can and doing it in a timely way. Because there are two issues. One is a dollar issue. I don't want Wayne County taxpayers to pay any more than the minimum to complete the existing facility. Anything over that needs to be guaranteed by someone else. But the other equation is we've been sitting here for nigh on to 3 years now waiting to get a jail off the ground. Yeah. So our operating costs, maintenance costs are crazy. I need to get it done now. So the idea of, well, we think we can fill in the hole, so stop the process and let us do this. We've been working on this process for 15 months. I'm not stopping anything. If they catch up, we could talk.
Well, how long do you think it will take for us to have these? I guess we're in the middle of side-by-side studies on what it takes, what it would be moving to Mound Road versus staying there. How long before we have an answer?
Well, we're way along the path of what it will cost to stay here. We're a couple of months away from putting out an RFP that will get us a contained cost. The question is, how quickly can they find an alternative that doesn't cost Wayne County taxpayers any more money? So I just want to be clear. I don't have any problem with an entertainment venue on the site.
Yes.
I just have a real problem. Wayne County taxpayers have already sunk $150 million in the failed jail project. It is my fiduciary responsibility to make sure they don't pay any more than they have to finish the jail.
And if you can find a way to make it less of a failure, then I guess that's key. You're in the middle of an interesting statewide tour right now, trying to convince others to join you in revolutionizing the way that we fund municipalities in the state of Michigan. Our revenue sharing model to you is really broken.
Yeah, it is. And it couldn't be clearer to me, because from where we took the county with everyone saying, oh, this is just bankruptcy and emergency manager and this and that. Well, that's not going to happen. And I think people understand that's not going to happen. We've balanced the budget.
That says a lot, because that was the conversation you and I were having on this program months ago. Yes.
Absolutely. And I felt we could get out of it, and we did. And now we have a balanced budget. But even with a balanced budget, there is not enough money there to provide the level of services that Wayne County taxpayers deserve, and frankly, we want to give them. There are not enough prosecutors in the prosecutor's office. There are not enough deputies at the jails. There's not enough money for road and infrastructure, bridges. And you can't eke that out of the revenue sharing that we get. And so at some point, there has to be an influx of money. Now, everybody hollers, well, tax increase.
You must be talking about a tax increase.
What I am talking about is a formula that allocates more money, more of our money that goes to the state back to the local municipalities than we get now. Now, what it says for sure is the state ought to get less and we ought to get more. If you're talking about the same dollars, and I understand.
And that's probably the only way you can get these other municipalities on board, because, for instance, when you're in the UP, as I noticed you'll be, in fact, I noticed you picked August to go to the UP instead of January.
Right.
Obama didn't raise no
Sound
fool.
thinking, right?
Yes. But trying to convince them that you're on the same page, you've got to convince them that this is not big city versus rural Michigan. This is state versus local.
Absolutely. And so some of the easiest decisions, you would think, in one part of the state aren't in the other part of the state. And so, and it has to be a consensus. I mean, you look at the state legislature, you look at the state now, if it's not bipartisan, it's not going to happen. And while people can focus on, well, it's not going to happen, I am more inclined to focus on it's broke now. So let's start the discussion. There are a number of municipal finance experts that I'm still learning from every day, and I would think people in my position throughout the state could learn more, understand more about how we got to where we are, and hopefully come up with some solutions.
We had a hard time, I guess, envisioning a day when property values would drop so much that it would mean less revenue. That's where we ended up. But schools are wrapped up in the way that they're funded in this conversation as well.
No, absolutely, they are. And arguably, with the debt service that schools are paying, there is a disproportionately smaller amount of money that kids in urban areas, Detroit, for example, and others are paying. Now, I mean, the purists can sit there and say, well, you shouldn't have created the debt service. I'm more concerned with the kid.
With where we're going.
Who had nothing to do with creating the debt service. And so if we're going to be competitive going forward, this region and the city and the mayor have done great things to build the city. But without schools and educated people to hit the workforce, we're going to have problems down the line. Let's deal with them now.
Well, I know your outreach on this topic begins in earnest up on Mackinac this week. We will see you up there and look forward to seeing you. Thanks very much for coming in this morning.
Thanks, Devin.
Warren Evans, the Wayne County Executive. When we come back, we'll talk about what's ahead on Mackinac Island. Sandy Barua joins me in just a minute on Flashpoint on Local 4. Welcome back. As I just mentioned, as we come out of Memorial Day weekend, a lot of people making the annual march up to Mackinac Island for the Detroit Regional Chamber's annual policy conference, and the head of the Detroit Regional Chamber is Sandy Barua, of course, a frequent fixture here on Flashpoint. Let's talk about what's coming up this week, Sandy. But before we do that, every year you put out your measurables of what you wanted to accomplish on the last one, the to-do list.
Right.
Where are we on last year's to-do
So
list?
we had 4 to-do items that we announced with the governor, and last year's chair, Mark Davidoff from Deloitte, went very, very well. We got all 4 things done. Interestingly, one of the things you're going to see on the stage, we said we're going to partner with a nonprofit organization. We picked the Detroit Historical Society and their 1967 project.
Which is a really big thing.
You're going to see a lot of that on the island this year.
Yeah, exactly right. You, of course, every year hear from people who tell you that this is a waste of time, that nothing ever gets done up there. And your answer typically is what?
Well, twofold. One, you won't get 40%. Our audience is 40% C-suite, right? You don't get that level of people spending that much money. I'll be honest with you, we're not cheap.
No, it's not.
To drive 5 hours or fly up there if they didn't get value year after year. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we're not a legislative body. We're not pretending to be a legislative body, right? You know, that actually takes place in Lansing. Our goal is to affect what happens in Lansing, what happens in Washington, D.C., what happens in our city councils across the state. And to that effect, I think we've been quite successful.
In fact, some people believe that it's the things that happen in the hallways and in the anterooms up there. And I had talked to a couple people that thought that you watch, the schools situation will get solved up there, but then you found out that Lansing's staying in session. You got 50 legislators you were expecting to be there, and now they won't be there. How does that change your outlook?
Well, first of all, the Senate is going to be up there, and the Senate package is the one that we're supporting, that the mayor's supporting, that the governor's supporting. So we got the Senate up there.
With which there's a huge gap, though, between
there is a huge gap. So listen, I tell you what, I have a lot of respect for the Speaker. I understand, you know, what his demands are. We hope, and I am actually kind of optimistic, that I think this House is going to find a way to get some of their work done, say perhaps Thursday morning, so they can get there Thursday afternoon and for Friday.
That would be nice.
That'd be nice.
Give me your thoughts then on what you would hope going in is the takeaway coming out.
Well, listen, I think regardless if the House gets there or not, DPS is going to be front on the agenda. One, it's going to be front on the agenda on stage. It's also going to be front on the agenda in the hallways. We've got to solve this problem. This is a statewide issue. We've got to solve this problem. The business community is very much aligned behind the Senate package. Mm-hmm. So you're going to see the business community rally around that package, and it may actually get solved up there. I'm still optimistic that the conference.
What do you expect these couple of days to be like for the governor? He's been a big supporter of this event. He's kind of hamstrung right now with what's been going on in Flint. What do you expect this couple of days to be like?
Well, certainly Flint is going to be on the agenda as well, too. We're happy to welcome Mayor Weaver up to the conference, so that's great. We've got Congressman Kildee on stage playing a role. Dr. Mona is playing a role. We're going to be fundraising around Flint. So Flint is going to be in the air the entire conference. I'm hoping that doesn't make the governor feel uncomfortable, but, you know, I don't think it will. He's a big boy. He understands how this works. He understands that what happened in Flint was not good, and he owns it. And I think he's doing the best he can to kind of say, listen, let's have a positive agenda forward, and that's why we're focused on the Child Health and Development Fund and the fundraising to kind of solve the problem in Flint.
Lastly, I would expect in a very politically versed group, as this group is, what's going on in the Republican race is going to be a topic of a lot of conversations.
Well, I think it's going to be a topic for a lot of ordering drinks at the bar. I'm not sure.
Some have suggested that's the best way to take this election. No.
Numb, yes. For those of us who follow politics, it is going to be a tough one.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Well, we're looking forward to it, and we will see you up there very soon. Sandy Brewer, the head of the Detroit Regional Chamber. Thanks, Sandy, as always. Thank you for being here as well. Meet the Press coming your way next. We are actually off next week due to the French Open. We will see you the following week. Hope you'll be right back here on Sunday morning for Flashpoint.